Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to S News. If you want to stay up to date with the latest, make sure to follow us so you don't miss out on this and future videos. And don't forget to support us by subscribing, liking and dropping a comment below. The Middle East on the brink, Iran, nuclear tensions and regional chaos. Tensions in the Middle East are escalating at an alarming rate, with a series of major developments happening almost simultaneously, pushing the region to the edge of an all-out confrontation. Iran has officially threatened to withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, something it hasn't done since 2003. At the same time, Tehran announced it's planning to ramp up uranium enrichment to weapons-grade levels, sending shockwaves through the international community. Western intelligence agencies confirmed that Iran has stockpiled enough enriched uranium to build at least 2 nuclear bombs. A chilling statement from Tehran triggered global panic, saying there would be no deal unless Iran is allowed to continue enriching uranium for weapons. Meanwhile, Syria is once again shaken by renewed fighting. Israel fears that the threat from Iranian-backed militias could justify a military strike, possibly even deep inside Syrian territory. And the United States isn't staying on the sidelines either. A special operation was launched to seize an Iranian ship carrying 750 tons of ammunition and missile components bound for Iranian-aligned forces in Yemen. Facing the growing threat of Iran's expanding firepower network across the region, former US President Donald Trump ordered a wide-scale air campaign targeting logistics bases, weapons depots and military infrastructure in Iraq, Syria and Lebanon. Amid the chaos, a surprising development brought a glimmer of hope. The PKK, previously labelled a terrorist group, officially laid down its arms after over 40 years of guerrilla warfare with Turkey, a potentially game-changing move for regional stability. The Middle East is once again on fire, but this time it's not just conventional war looming, but the terrifying spectre of nuclear conflict. The situation is changing by the hour, and we're bringing you to the heart of these critical developments. Iran's nuclear escalation. Iran has warned it may withdraw from the NPT and enrich uranium to weapons-grade levels. If the West reinstates United Nations sanctions, Tehran says it will respond aggressively. This threat comes amid growing pressure from the United States and its European allies. According to Iranian state media, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio, along with foreign ministers from France, Germany and the United Kingdom, agreed in a call to set a deadline in August for reaching a new nuclear deal with Tehran. The European Union stated it would activate the snapback mechanism if no progress is made. This would restore all United Nations sanctions lifted under the 2015 nuclear agreement. Such a move would heavily impact Iran's trade, banking, military and nuclear programs. Experts warn that reinstating sanctions could completely collapse the already fragile deal and push Iran closer to making a nuclear bomb by enriching uranium up to 90%. This crisis began when the United States exited the nuclear deal in 2018 under President Trump. Since then, Iran has gradually stepped back from its commitments and expanded its nuclear activities. Tensions escalated further after US and Israeli airstrikes directly hit Iranian nuclear facilities. Now, with mounting military and diplomatic pressure, Iran might take the historic step of exiting the NPT, ending international oversight of its nuclear program. If that happens, not only the Middle East, but global efforts to control nuclear weapons could be at serious risk. Iran admits to having enough uranium for 2 nuclear bombs. Iran has directly told the United States it won't accept any deal unless its right to enrich uranium is recognized. On May 16th, Tehran declared that it won't sign any agreement without acknowledgement of this right, claiming, "We don't want nuclear weapons, but our right to enrichment is non-negotiable." An Israeli government spokesperson confirmed that Iran continues developing its nuclear technology despite sanctions, already surpassing 60% enrichment and being just a few technical steps away from weapons grade. The International Atomic Energy Agency reports that Iran now has enough 60% enriched uranium to build at least 2 nuclear bombs. Reaching 90% enrichment could be completed within weeks, with current technology, if no one intervenes. Despite repeatedly stating it doesn't seek nuclear weapons, Iran removed IAEA surveillance cameras from sensitive sites, blocking inspectors' access to crucial data. Western analysts believe Tehran may be preparing for a full-scale confrontation with Israel and the United States, using nukes as its last card. How close are we, really, to a nuclear Middle East? If Iran reaches 90% enrichment, it could build a Hiroshima-style bomb in just a few days. With 5,561 kilograms of fissile material in its stockpile, the largest ever recorded, it could potentially produce many strategic nuclear weapons if left unchecked. However, mysterious explosions, secret air raids on Iran's Fordow facility, and a series of assassinations targeting Iranian nuclear scientists suggest Israel and the US are running a covert sabotage campaign to stop Iran from taking the final step. The risk of a nuclear explosion in the Middle East is growing. If Iran builds its first bomb, it could trigger a regional arms race. Israel may act preemptively to stop it. A large-scale Israeli airstrike on Iran's nuclear facilities could happen at any moment, according to US and Mossad sources. Renewed fighting in Syria, Israel's final warning. Heavy clashes erupted again in Suwaida, southern Syria, despite a ceasefire announced by the Syrian military. On May 16th, fighting resumed between Syrian government forces and local ethnic militias. Reports say intense shelling hit Suwaida and nearby villages at dawn. The Syrian Ministry of Defense accused armed groups of violating the ceasefire, urging civilians to stay indoors. The UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said at least 248 people have been killed since the conflict reignited, including dozens of civilians. Violence over the weekend flared between the Druze community and Sunni Bedouin groups loyal to the regime. The Syrian army deployed forces to the area on May 14th to separate the two sides, but soon clashed with Druze militias. While some Druze leaders called for peace, others demanded international intervention. Israeli jets bombed Syrian government positions before and after the ceasefire was declared. Prime Minister Netanyahu said the strikes were to protect the Druze community, who have historical ties to Israel, and to stop Damascus from threatening Israel's southern border. On May 16th, Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman warned that attacks would intensify if Syrian forces don't pull out of Suwaida and leave the Druze alone. Druze leaders in Israel called for a strike in solidarity with Druze in Syria and urged Russian troops stationed nearby to prepare to intervene. Many Israeli Druze live in northern Israel and serve in the military. According to CNN, dozens crossed into the Golan Heights to help their kin in Syria but were turned back by Israeli forces. US forces recently helped seize an Iranian ship carrying 750 tons of ammunition and missile parts intended for the Houthi rebels in Yemen. In a statement on January 16th, US Central Command said Yemeni forces intercepted what it called the largest ever arms shipment from Iran to the Houthis. It included cruise missiles, anti-ship missiles, air defense weapons, drone engines, radar systems, and military communications gear. Many of the weapons were made by a company linked to Iran's defense ministry and already under US sanctions. The illegal shipment was clearly intended to boost Houthi military capabilities. The US warned that Iran remains the region's most destabilizing actor, and that cutting off support to the Houthis is vital for regional security and freedom of navigation. So far, neither Iran nor the Houthis have commented publicly on the seizure. Airstrikes and regional tensions escalate as Hezbollah and Iran face pressure. CBS News reported that the seizure of a Hezbollah arms smuggling ship came after the group carried out a series of attacks on cargo ships in the Red Sea earlier this month. These attacks led to the sinking of 2 ships and the deaths of 3 people. In response, former President Donald Trump ordered a wave of airstrikes deep inside Iranian territory. In just the first 5 months of Trump's second term, the United States carried out nearly as many airstrikes as it did during all 4 years under President Joe Biden. According to The Telegraph, Trump's strikes in Yemen against the Houthis and in Somalia against armed groups were significantly more aggressive than Biden's. Trump also approved attacks in Iraq, Syria, and now Iran. Data from a conflict tracking organization shows that since returning to office in January, Trump has overseen 529 airstrikes. By comparison, Biden's administration carried out 555 strikes during his entire four-year term. Under Biden, the United States targeted Syria, Iraq, Yemen and Somalia. But with Trump back in office, a new front opened Iran's nuclear program. Professor Cleon Ralick, director of an international conflict research group, emphasized how much more intense Trump's campaigns have been. He said the US military now moves faster, strikes harder, and operates under fewer restrictions. In his inauguration speech, Trump stated, "We will measure success not just by the battles we win, but by the wars we end." He also pushed the idea of peace through strength, suggesting that wars America avoids by showing power are just as important as those it wins. During Trump's presidency, the United States did not attack Libya or Afghanistan. Airstrikes are often seen as a more efficient alternative to sending American troops into war zones, a contrast to the approach of former President Barack Obama. Public opinion polls show that 84% of Trump supporters approved of the airstrikes and 70% strongly backed them. A major historical event has just unfolded near northern Iraq. The BKK, or Bangkok Kurdwan Party, which the United States, European Union and Turkey have labelled a terrorist organisation, has officially ended its armed struggle, bringing nearly 40 years of guerrilla warfare to a close. Last week, 30 BKK fighters surrendered their weapons in front of Iraqi, Turkish and international officials. While symbolic, this move represents a significant step toward regional peace. A bit of background. The BKK was founded in 1978 with the aim of establishing an independent state for the Chinese population. Since 1984, it's been engaged in a deadly insurgency against Turkey that claimed tens of thousands of lives. Why did the BKK surrender? Observers believe the decision was driven by two main factors: widespread exhaustion among the people after decades of war and repression, and recent reform signals from the Turkish government pointing toward long-term political solutions. Even some Turkish nationalists, once bitterly opposed, have begun voicing support for peace talks. The United States role, the US State Department called this a victory for civilization. Although the BKK is still officially listed as a terrorist group, its shift from armed conflict to political engagement is seen as a strategic transformation. Still, the situation remains fragile. As of now, BKK fighters have not been allowed back into Turkey. The Turkish government refuses to call this a peace deal, instead referring to it as a terror-free Turkey. Ankara is demanding more than symbolic gestures. It wants real concessions with lasting impact. The Pakistani Taliban reportedly maintain strong ties with international forces in Syria. If this peace initiative succeeds, it could pave the way for post-war reconstruction in Syria, involving international actors. The next 3 to 5 months will be critical. If things go well, it could mark a major democratic milestone and boost the diplomatic standing of the United States and its allies in the Middle East. Finally, thank you so much for listening and for being with us through these important stories. We really appreciate your support. Don't forget to follow S News and be sure to watch our future videos. Please subscribe.